Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the Buckeye Report. This is Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated. I'm Brendan Gulick along with Andrew Lind, and we are at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center after Ohio State had a media availability here this evening. The Buckeyes made several players available to us after practice, as they often do on Wednesdays, and I thought it was a good night. The overwhelming theme of the night, Andrew, was about toughness. It was an Ohio State team that I think is really focused on trying to figure out a way to just make sure they can be the tougher of the two teams on the field on Saturday night against Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that we had a tough out, this 92-degree weather today, so it's a little hot.
It is
here,
sticky inside the Woody Hayes Center.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that we come to expect every time Ohio State plays Wisconsin, and I know that it's been 3 seasons since they played twice in that same year, but yeah, it's just every time these two teams meet, you know what you're going to get, and I think that we're going to get more of that, obviously, on Saturday.
That's certainly what we're hoping for, right? I mean, we think we've got a matchup here of certainly, if not the team that's favored to win the East, one of two. And then you got a team on the West that obviously has the tradition and knows that they're at a point where they can expect to win tough games. I've said it a couple of times this week. I don't really know how else to be nice about it. The West really has kind of stunk. Northwestern's been terrible. Nebraska has already fired their coach. Iowa's defense looks terrific. Their offense looks like they have never played football before sometimes. Illinois hasn't been very good. Purdue has had 2 really frustrating losses already, despite the fact they have, I think, a pretty good quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. So Wisconsin has to be sitting here going, hey, guys, I know we lost to Washington State in week 2, and this hasn't been a perfect start. We got to go to Columbus, but the West Division feels pretty wide open for them.
Yeah, I think that obviously them losing to Washington State at home is kind of a blip on that radar because, you expect Wisconsin to constantly go into maybe the Big Ten championship game 11-1, 12-0, because that's just how weak that division is. But yeah, for them to lose at home to Washington State, that's kind of shocking. And I think it's really important to kind of note that in that game, you kind of saw everything that they had because they were losing and were doing everything they could to come back and win that game. And I think that's one thing that you haven't seen from Ohio State yet. You haven't seen everything that they have because they haven't been in a situation where you have to put it all out there. So yeah, I mean, it obviously helps from Ohio State standpoint because you know what you're going to get from Wisconsin. You've seen it on tape, and now it's a matter of putting it out there throughout the week.
Had a chance to talk with several players tonight. Let's see, Mayan Williams, Cade Stover, Paris Johnson, Steele Chambers, Tommy Eichenberg, Luke Whippler. I think that was it. Did I miss anybody? I think it was those 6.
Yeah.
We were hoping to talk. Yep. Yeah. We were hoping to talk to Mitch Rossi, but he had to go to class because believe it or not, these kids actually do still go to class.
They do come here to play school.
Yeah, we've heard that rumor. I don't know. I guess it was a fun group to talk to because, like I said off the top, they all kind of mentioned the same things as cornerstones of what this week is about. Cade Stover in particular talked about how much harder they try to push themselves Tuesday and Wednesday so that Saturdays are in some ways not as physically taxing, not as difficult.
Yeah, and Ryan Day has kind of talked about that too at length. If you go throughout the week and you're prepared in every single way, then once Saturday comes along, then you're prepared for that moment, and it's a lot easier because you're not having to deal with it or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of going every Monday. They have Monday off, but Tuesday and Wednesday go hard, and then by the time that game comes, then you're not worrying about it at all because you've already been there and you're prepared for that moment.
I appreciate that you're waiting. You can take the power strip. That's yours. We're doing our live stand-up here basically at the same time that Ohio State's cleaning up after tonight. And it's great to actually be able to spread out on the indoor because it feels like everybody's kind of got their own space to do stuff like this. And we're grateful for the opportunity to be out here. Look, Tommy Eichenberg, I think has caught a lot of people's attention early in the season. Certainly isn't surprising anybody inside this building with the way he works and with what his approach looks like. But I think there's a lot of people around the country that are starting to say, hey, that middle linebacker for the Buckeyes looks pretty darn good. And I actually saw, if you compare his stats with Will Anderson down at Alabama over the last 4 games, everybody knows who Will Anderson is because of what he's done for Alabama. Tommy's stats right now are, for what it's worth, they're running circles around Will in that stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to note, and that's I saw that too, and I don't, it kind of came from an account that kind of obviously likes to inflate things for the Buckeyes, and it's kind of more of a fan account. But yeah, I mean, that's not to diminish anything that Tommy is doing, because he's obviously, in those games and for Ohio State just doing everything he's supposed to do. But yeah, I think, when Will Anderson is only playing, Louisiana Monroe and Utah State, and he's having to come out after halftime, I think, you kind of have to take that into account too.
It's fair. It's fair. But I still thought it was kind of fun to look at. What do you expect from Wisconsin? It's a team that obviously what you're going to get from them defensively. They're going to play hard. There's obviously not a lot of new faces on that side of the ball this year. Their entire secondary is new this year, and their top corner is going to be out this weekend. I would think that bodes pretty well for CJ Stroud and company. I don't think that's going too far out on a limb. Yeah. I don't know that I expect 736 yards of offense, but I kind of anticipate that they're going to play well.
Yeah, and especially defensively. I mean, I think that, Wisconsin is very, one-dimensional in that aspect. Braylon Allen is probably one of the best running backs in the country. And, to think that he only should be in his first year in college because he, reclassified and was starting for them at 17 last year. But then, Graham Mertz, obviously he was a very talented high school quarterback, but since he's been in there, he's pretty much good for 3, interceptions, maybe a game. And I think that bodes well for Ohio State, just knowing, they're going to run the ball with Allen. And then if they have to force, Mertz to throw the ball, then that, that could turn into more turnovers for Ohio State.
How about from a sort of like a stock report, if you want to call it that? Like, look at the first 3 games of the year. Let's take some stock of where the team is and then figure out, okay, now we're starting Big Ten play. How does this look? I'm curious. I guess they've kind of accomplished the things I wanted to see, but what did you want to see the first 3 games, and how is that measured up to where you hope they'd be at this point of the year?
Honestly, that's a really good question. It kind of put me on the spot there. But yeah, I mean, I think that defensively, I'd like to think that, that they haven't maybe gotten the pressure that I expected them to, especially, off the end, just because, JT and Jack Sawyer don't have any sacks to this point. And I think that, maybe in the Arkansas State game and in the Toledo game, there were opportunities for that. But then when you're playing a dual threat quarterback, that kind of makes it a little bit harder. So yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to really say that there's an issue there, but I think that I think the stock up is with the linebackers. I think, the safeties, because, they're 4, 5, 6 deep at that spot. So, and then obviously the corners, the depth there kind of makes it, a challenge. Denzel Burke not playing as well as, we maybe expected. Maybe the stock is down there. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, this weekend is really just going to be an opportunity for them to kind of go out there and put maybe a full game together defensively, and just, knowing what Wisconsin brings. And, that should give us a little bit better sense of, where they are moving forward.
I agree largely there. I want to see more out of the defensive line too. I obviously love what Mike Hall has done so far. And even though they haven't come up with sacks, the combination of Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, and Zach Harrison, I think really have generated a lot more heat than I thought they did it through the first 3 games last year. It's just gut feeling, but I like what they've done there.
Well, I do think one thing that I'm kind of surprised about too is Tyleik Williams hasn't
played great.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of expected what you see of Mike Hall to be Tyleik Williams this year. So yeah, I think, if he steps up, then that's only going to make it's kind of one of those things, the interior, if they can get the push, that's going to allow the defensive ends to kind of have the impact that we expected them.
We'll see what the Buckeye defensive line does against what we really think is a pretty good offensive front for the Wisconsin Badgers. They pretty much always are, but get the impression that this year's group is doing a pretty good job up front. So we'll see how Ohio State's defense plays in the trenches on Saturday night. We got a ton of coverage planned over the next couple of days we think you'll really enjoy. In fact, we're going to check in with Matt Bells, who is the publisher of All Badgers. That's the Wisconsin site on our Fan Nation network through Sports Illustrated. He's going to share the perspective of the Wisconsin fan and certainly the Wisconsin media, what they think of this team so far, where Graham Mertz has been better. We're certainly going to ask him about, from a defensive perspective, why did Jim Leonhard decide not to take a job with the Green Bay Packers and to stick around, despite the fact he had 7 new starters coming in this year. So I think we'll get some really good input from him. And then certainly catch us on Friday. We'll do our game preview with, basically 24 hours or so before kick. John Rutter is actually going to step in for me this weekend. I've got a family wedding I've got to attend to, so we're going to talk with John because John is going to be on site and handling a lot of the content this weekend. So looking forward to a fun game Saturday night. In the meantime, I don't want to get off air before we publicly acknowledge the king of cloth. I don't know if you saw it on social media or not, but Andrew got a heck of a shout out from the Ohio State media relations folks for breaking the news about the black uniforms that Ohio State's wearing this weekend. And if you are interested, check out ohiostateuniforms.com. It's a good spot.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Rumor has it.
Yeah. Don't forget, though, same thing's going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks against Iowa because they're going to be wearing the scarlet, too. So, yeah, stay tuned for that, too.
Looking forward to seeing the Buckeyes. It is a wear black weekend, so everybody's encouraged on Saturday night.
Not a blackout.
Not a blackout. It's a wear black.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the difference is there, other than just what we were told. But wear black. That's what we're told to tell you. So, anyways, wear black this weekend. Have some fun watching the Buckeyes, and we'll certainly bring you the latest when we get more news and info here out of the Woody Hayes Center. For Andrew Lind, the king of cloth, I'm Brendan Gulick. We'll see you again real soon. The Buckeyes in Wisconsin Saturday night over at the Shoe.